Welcome to the channel. Hope you all are doing well. This is the second part of the video of the story in the Kingdom of Fools by A.K. Ramanujan. Now, we had already discussed in the first part, you had known how the kingdom was ruled by a foolish king and the ministers were equally foolish, and how amidst everything there was a peculiarity in the lifestyle of those people there. They converted night into day, day into night. They tilled their fields at night and slept during the day, and where everything was available only for a rupee, a single dudu. Now, in the previous video, I told you that the Guru had foreseen the difficulty, or you may say had foreseen the trouble that was going to come to the disciple. But however, the disciple was very tempted. He was very greedy, and that is the reason why out of his greed he could not understand the premonition, the warning. We also saw that a thief had died. He had burgled into the merchant's house, and how justice was done in a very haywire way. The actual victim had been questioned, and the actual guilty, the thief, his brother, demanded justice. Now, the place where we had stopped in the previous part of this story was then when this dancer was questioned. Now, my dear viewers, I had already told you in the previous video, I had said that when you lack sensibility, you often blame it on the others. And if you see here, every other person was doing the same thing. The thief's brother did not accept that it was the fault of the thief. Rather, he blamed the merchant for not building a strong wall. The merchant blamed the builder, the person who built, the mason. The bricklayer rather. The bricklayer here blamed the dancer. And now let's see what the dancer has to say. Now, the king actually questioned the dancer here. Well, according to the king, it was the fault of the merchant because of the wall that was not strong, that killed the thief. Look at the justice of the king. I mean, this is exactly what I was talking about in the previous video. So we'll just continue from this part. Now, the goldsmith named the merchant, and he was, we are supposed to start from here, where the goldsmith was summoned by the king, and he blamed it on the dancer. The goldsmith said, "My lord, I am a poor goldsmith. It's true, I made this dancer come many times," because the dancer said, she thought for a minute, we are starting from this line here, she thought for a minute and said, "My lord, wait, I know now why I was walking up and down the street," because the allegation, the blame was on the dancer, and if you remember, the bricklayer had been questioned, and the bricklayer said that due to the dancer who was pacing up and down the street, he was unable to concentrate. And then finally, he built a bad wall. And now when the dancer has been questioned, the king says, "It has fallen on the poor burglar and killed him. You have killed an innocent man." I want you to mark this for all those students who are following my explanation as of now. Please mark this line because it's very important. See, my dear people, my dear friends, let me tell you, justice is all about sensibility. And if you cannot do justice, that means you lack sensibility. The king at this point of time says very clearly, he tells the thief to be innocent. And that itself shows what kind of a dabba, what kind of a box, or rather an idiot the king was. This girl, this lady, this old lady, by now she was very old, she thought for a minute and said, "My lord, wait. I know now why I was walking up and down the street. I had given some gold to the goldsmith to make some jewelry for me. He was a lazy scoundrel. Scoundrel is a slang. He made so many excuses that he would give it now and he would give it then, and so on all day. He made me walk up and down to his house a dozen times." Often, when we do not realize our mistake, it is then when we are doubly insensible and doubly unwise. The first fault here lay in the king. I would say that. Of course, you would agree with me. The king was not at all wise, because see, there is a kahavat again, there is a saying, Sarvadeshe pujyate raja, vidwan sarvatra pujyate. Again a Sanskrit kahavat, a proverb. A king is always worshipped in his own country. Swadeshe pujyate raja. And vidwan sarvatra pujyate. Vidwan, the guru, very ironically, very unfortunately, was discarded by the disciple. And the irony of the situation is, the irony of the entire situation is, that it is the guru later on who would be coming to rescue the disciple. Because in my lecture I had also talked about karma. You cannot escape from your actions. This is another lesson that you need to take from the story. The disciple was told n number of times by the guru, he was already warned by the guru, but then it was the karma of the disciple that he did not listen, that he was tempted, he was intrigued, he was attracted. So obviously, due to his karma, as you sow, so shall you reap, is the saying, it's the famous proverb, So coming to this area, when this lady was asked, she blamed it on the goldsmith. And she said that it was the goldsmith who made her walk up to his house n number of times, umpteen times. And that was then when the bricklayer saw me. It's not my fault, my lord. It's the damned goldsmith's fault. Poor thing. She's absolutely right, thought the king. Weighing the evidence, we've got the real culprit at last. Get the goldsmith. And the king was like, fine. The king here reminds me of Thalika Bangan. Why I shall tell you? Because just as the Thalika Bangan is a famous saying, Thalika Bangan. Thalika Bangan means a brinjal on the dish, on the plate, who is basically very spineless, lacks ability of judgment, lacks decisiveness. Whoever explains to him whatever, he agrees, he accepts. But he is Swadeshe Pujyate, and that is where I bring that proverb again. He was the king of his own country, of course, so it is the duty of the people to worship him. Okay, king has said, definitely it's the truth. We cannot refute it. But I tell you, Vidwan Sarvatra Pujyate. So the Vidwan's role is going to be seen later in the story. Now, the king very quickly, he accepted that it was the goldsmith's fault. Get him at once. And the king's bailiffs, the officers of the king, they searched for the goldsmith who was hiding in the corner of his shop. When he heard the accusation against him, he had his own story to tell. My lord, he said, I am a poor goldsmith. It's true, I made this dancer come many times to my door. I gave her excuses because I couldn't finish making her jewelry before I finished the rich merchant's orders. Now again, the merchant was in the Katgara, the dock. The merchant was in trouble now. Goal, घूम कर जो है, the ball, is this like passing the parcel kind of a thing, which is happening. So it's going round and round and round and round. It started from the merchant. It again came to the merchant. Now the goldsmith has his own excuse. He said that because the merchant had ordered his jewelry, he had his own orders, which is why he could not complete the order of this dancer. And that is the reason why he had to call this dancer time and again to his house. They had a wedding coming. So the merchant had a wedding in his house probably. And says the goldsmith, how impatient rich men are. So again, the blame game continues. Who is the rich merchant who kept you from finishing this poor woman's jewelry, made her walk up and down, which distracted this bricklayer, which made a mess of this wall, which has now fallen on an innocent man and killed him? Wow. Can you name him? So, who was this merchant? Tell me. The king tells here. The king asks. The goldsmith named the merchant, and he was none other than the original owner of the house whose wall had fallen. So I told you, round and round and round and round, the ball came again, like passing the parcel. The parcel came in the hand of the merchant again, in the hands of the merchant. Well, now justice had come full circle. At this point of time, I want you to realize the initial things that I was telling when I had begun the lecture. See, I had told you literature, I will not repeat this again, but then you must understand that literature's stories and poems, whatever you learn, they are value oriented. This lesson also has a couple of lessons to learn. The first thing, see, your own sensibility is in your own hands. Nobody else, however, is accountable for you. When the Guru and the disciple came to the town, the first peculiarity that they saw was that the law of nature had been challenged. Day had become night, night had become day. Everything, the value of everything was restricted to a do. So looking at these two things, the Guru very clearly said, the Guru very clearly said the disciple to move away. But the disciple's greed, his temptation, his fascination, these things were so intense. And that is the reason why he chose to stay back. Why am I telling you continuously about the disciple and the Guru? Because ultimately the entire blame is going to fall on a fat man. And the fat man is none other than the disciple who had bulged by eating in excess. And that is the second lesson that I want you to understand. Even if things are very alluring, even if things are very attractive, use your sensibility, which the disciple did not. He did not. And finally, you will see why I said, Swadeshe Pujyate Raja, Vidwan Sarvatra Pujyate. That you will come to see in the last at the last of the story, you know. So again the merchant was like questioned, and the king consulted. The goldsmith named the merchant, and then the other was none other than the original owner of the house. When he was rudely summoned back to the court, he arrived crying, and he said, "It wasn't me, but my father who had ordered the jewelry. He is dead. I'm innocent." But the king consulted his minister and ruled decisively. This is irony. I had told you irony means something that is totally opposite of what is going to happen. Like, what is the meaning of decisive? A good decision that you take on the basis of sensibility. Was the king decisive? No. But then it has been said that he was quite decisive. He consulted all his ministers. How would that matter? All the ministers were fools. And that is the reason this episode, the entire story, is named as In the Kingdom of Fools, where sensibility has got nothing to do. Let's see. It's true your father is the true murderer. He's dead. But somebody must be punished in his place. You have inherited everything from that criminal father of yours. Look at that. The actual guilty was pleading innocent, and the actual victim is guilty at this point of time. So, you have inherited everything from your father. You have got everything from your father, whatever his property was, whatever his money was, jewelry, everything. Now it is your duty to own up, to accept his sins also. So I knew at once, even when I set eyes on you, I knew the moment I looked at you, says the king here, that you were at the roof of this horrible crime. I could understand the moment I saw you, and that is where the readers get a chance to laugh again. You must die. And he ordered a new stake to be made, ready for the execution, where he would be executed, killed. As the servants sharpened the stake and got it ready for the final impaling of the criminal, it occurred to the minister that the rich merchant was somehow too thin to be properly executed on the stake. So he was too thin, the merchant was too thin to be executed on the stake. So he appealed to the king's common sense. Irony. King's common sense. What a joke. The king too worried. He was too worried about it. The king too was worried about it. What shall we do? He said, when suddenly it struck him that all they needed was to find a man fat enough to fit the stake. The stake had been put where the merchant's head had to be kept and executed. But the merchant was very thin. So what had to be done? They had to find a man who was fat enough, and that is why I said karma is very important. The karma of the disciple will lead him to such a situation now. That is to be understood. So the servants were immediately sent all over the town looking for a man who would fit the stake, and their eyes fell on the disciple who had fattened himself for months on bananas and rice and wheat and ghee. Look at that. So, what have I done wrong? I'm innocent. I'm a sannyasi. Irony again. If you are a sannyasi, why did you not listen to your guru? If you are a sannyasi, why were you so greedy? Sannyasis practice penitence. They practice austerity. They practice sacrifice. What have you done? He cried. That may be true, but the royal decree, the law, is that we should find a man fat enough to fit the stake, they said, and carried him to the place of execution. He remembered his wise guru's words. That is why I said, Vidvan sarvatra pujyate. If you're really wise, see, you may earn a lot of money in life. Excuse me. You may earn a lot of degrees in your life. But if you cannot earn good friends or probably good advice, or if you cannot earn good sensibility, if you cannot develop, if you cannot inculcate sensibility, your life basically is meaningless. At this point of time, believe me, this had to happen, and that is the reason why I talked about karma. Now he realizes the importance of education. Now he realizes the worth of a teacher. Teacher is not that person who would be just correcting papers and giving you marks. Ye teacher achhe hai, wo teacher achhe hai, ye miss achhi hai, wo sir achhe hai. No. Your life is your greatest teacher. Your guru, who will keep you away from all negativity, is your teacher. It can be your friend, it can be we teachers, it can be your life itself. Look at that. Now he realized the importance of his teacher, and he prayed to his guru in his heart, asking him to hear his cry wherever he was. The guru saw everything in a vision, and he had magic powers. He could see far, and he could see the future. Of course, that is the reason why I called the guru to be very foresighted. Foresighted nahi, foresighted. F-O-R-E. F-O-R-E-S-I-G-H-T-E-D. Foresighted. Who can see future, who can predict future. Well, so he arrived at once to save his disciple who had got himself into such a scrape, such a trouble, through love of food. So, why was the disciple in trouble? Because of his excessive love for food. As soon as he arrived, he scolded the disciple and told him something in a whisper. Then he went to the king and addressed him, "O wisest of kings, who is greater, the guru or the disciple?" Of course, the guru. No doubt about it. Why do you ask? Then put me to the stake first. Put my disciple to death after me. This was the, trick that the guru had played on the king. When the disciple heard this, he understood and began to clamor, "Me first. You brought me here first. Put me to death first, not him." The guru and his disciple now got into a fight about who should go first. The king was puzzled by this behavior. The king, it is very easy to make, fun of somebody who is already insensible. And the king was already insensible. Come on. One more thing I had told you in my previous lecture, excuse me, is that never go by appearance. This I had said when I was talking about the shishya here, when I was talking about the disciple. The disciple judged everything by appearance. Oh, you get ghee, rice, so much of food. Wow, for a single rupee. Let's stay here. And that landed him in this kind of a trouble. The king also, of course, was going by what he was seeing. He was puzzled because it was a very strange sight. Why did the two people want to die? They were dying to die. Why was it so? But he could not understand that this could be a trick. Why? Because he lacked knowledge, he lacked wisdom, he lacked education. And I had told you, education does not come from books only. Education comes from experiences. So they were fighting. Why shouldn't, you shouldn't ask me such questions. Why do you want to die? This person asked. He asked the guru, why do you want to die? We chose him because we needed a fat man for the stake. You shouldn't ask me such questions. Put me to death first, replied the Guru. Why? There is some mystery here. As a wise man, you must make me understand. And now, the Guru begins. Will you promise to put me to death if I tell you? Asked the Guru. The king gave him his solemn word, a very serious word. He promised him very seriously, okay, fine, you tell me why you want to die, I will definitely kill you first, get you executed first. The Guru took him aside out of the servant's earshot and whispered to him, do you know why we want to die right now? The two of us, we have been all over the world, but we have never found a city like this, or a king like you. That stake is the stake of the God of justice. This was the ploy, this was the trap. So, it is new. So the stake is not just a normal stake. The stake happens to be the stake of the God of justice. That is the reason we want to die as soon as possible. It has never had a criminal on it. Whoever dies on it first will be reborn as the king of this country. We are sick of our ascetic life. It would be nice to enjoy ourselves as king and minister for a while. Now keep your word, my lord. Put us to death. Me first, remember. So this was the trick that the Guru played on the king. And that is the reason why I said Vidvan Sarvatra Pujyate. Because of the Guru's knowledge, because of his practical knowledge, pragmatic knowledge, experiences, wisdom, sensibility, the disciples' life was going to be saved. Look what happens here. The king was now thrown into deep thought. He didn't want to lose the kingdom to someone else in the next round of life. Remember, I had told you, greed leads to sin, sin leads to death. The king was greedy now. And if you are insensitive, if you are insensible, and if you are greedy, it's a dangerous combination, believe me. It's a dangerous combination. So, the king saw, oh, the Guru will be dying. The Shishya will be dying. They will be becoming kings and ministers. What about me? I will be losing the kingdom. Oh God, the stupid king did not even understand that it could have been a trick. So obviously the king deserved to be tricked because he lacked practical sensibility. So what did he do? He ordered the execution postponed to the next day and talked secretly with his ministers, he talked in secret. It's not the right time, it's not right for us to give over the kingdom to others in the next life. Let's go on to the stake ourselves. And that's the funniest part of the story here. The king himself wants to die with his minister. He said, now, and we'll be reborn as king and minister again. Holy men do not tell lies. He said, and the minister agreed. So he told the executioners, we'll send the criminals tonight. When the first man comes, put him to death first. Then do the same to the second man. Those are my orders. Don't make any mistake. That night, the king and his minister went secretly to the prison, released the Guru and the disciple, disguised themselves as the two, and as arranged beforehand, with loyal servants, were taken to the stake and promptly executed. So the chapter of the king got over. He died. In the greed of becoming king in the next birth, he died in this birth. That is what happens when you do not have sensibility, when you do not have knowledge. When the bodies were taken down to be thrown to crows and vultures, the people panicked. They were afraid. They were scared. They were panicked. They saw before them the dead bodies of the king and the minister. The city was in confusion. All night they mourned and discussed the future of the kingdom. Some people suddenly thought of the Guru and his disciple and caught up with them that they were preparing to leave the town unnoticed. The Guru and the disciple were planning to leave the town without letting anybody know. But then they wanted a king and they wanted a minister. We people need a king and a minister, said someone. Others agreed. They begged the Guru and the disciple to persuade, to be the king and their minister. It didn't take many arguments to persuade. They finally agreed to rule the kingdom of the foolish king and the silly minister on the condition, now this is important, that they could change all the old laws. And that is why I said Vidvan Sarvatra Pujyate. It is due to the wisdom of the Guru that a new day, a new dawn could be experienced in the kingdom of fools. So the kingdom of fools, which metaphorically was in the state of darkness due to the previous king and the minister, now was going to see a new morning. From then on, night would again be night and day would again be day, and you could get nothing for a dudu. It became like any other place. So with that, I come to the explanation of this particular story. Hope you understood the story very well, but a couple of things that I want you to ponder over. What do you think had actually saved the disciple? It is actually a blend of two things. Number one, the sensibility of the Guru and the insensibility of the king. Therefore, we are responsible for our own karma. Had the king not been greedy, even he would not have died. Had the disciple not been greedy, he would not have been trapped in such a difficult situation. But the best part is, it's always important to be, to have a good advisor, a good teacher, a good mentor in our lives who can, give us good pieces of advice. So I hope you understood the lesson in the Kingdom of Fools, a very beautiful adaptation from a Kannada folk tale, a Kannada tale by Ramanujan. And that is the reason why I told you Ramanujan was a great observer, like all the other writers, like R.K. Narayan, Mulkraj Anand, Sarojini Naidu, Raja Rao, and many more writers, many more Indian writers. So Ramanujan's observation of humanity, Ramanujan's observation of the society has come up with a lot of lessons through this one lesson. And I have been repeating these lessons time and again when I had been explaining the story. So with that, I come to the end of today's lecture. Hope you understood the lesson. Hope you liked the explanation. Please keep watching the videos and please subscribe the channel for more videos. Thank you so much. God bless all of you. Thank you.